Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sports Speak. I'm one of the hosts, Jared Smith, and alongside me we have
Alexis
Alexis.
Yoder.
Yay!
So good. Let's go. Jared, how has your semester gone so far?
Man, it's just been one thing after another. My Spanish class is really starting to get to me, but I love it. It's just a lot. It's a lot, man. It's a lot, but I enjoy it. How about you?
It's been going good. I actually just moved into my new apartment right outside of State College, so that was fun. My classes so far have been like suspiciously easy, I would say. But only been the first 2 weeks. So, week three, I feel like is when, everything starts going downhill and you start getting backed up with assignments. But, I'm just gonna take it as they come. So yeah, that's been my semester so far. I'm excited to, have my own space now, hopefully get a good schedule going since it's just me now. Yeah. All
That's
right.
good. That's good. That's good. Well, all right, let's get into it with some wins and losses from this week. First, on Monday, women's basketball played against Minnesota, where they lost 85-76. On Wednesday, men's basketball was at Ohio State, where they lost 83-79. Thursday, women's basketball played against Illinois, where they won 80-76. And men's hockey played against Notre Dame, where they won 2-1. Hmm, interesting. Okay. Friday, women's hockey played against Lindenwood, where they won 6-2. And that was, I believe, the sixth win that they had this
Yeah, I think it
season.
was their no, it was their fifth consecutive win. They started
Yes.
off the new year. They lost to Syracuse. That was their final game of 2020. And then as soon as the second half of the schedule started, 2021, they won five straight games. And I mean you'll get into this in a little bit, but they tied their sixth game of the new year, and that was also against Lindenwood. They tied 2-2, and they've gone through 2021 so far without a loss.
I wish. I bet a lot of teams wish they could say that, but hey, good for women's hockey right now. So also on that Friday schedule, they had men's volleyball playing against Ohio State, where they won 3-0.
All right.
Men's hockey played Notre Dame again, where they lost 3-2. Saturday, men's volleyball played against Ohio State, where they won 3-0. Women's hockey played against Linwood, where they tied 2-2. Men's basketball played against Wisconsin, where they won 81-71. And wrestling had a tri meet where they beat Northwestern 29-13 and Indiana 24-15. On Sunday, women's basketball played at Purdue, where they won 80-70. And I believe, Lex, if I'm not mistaken, that is their third win on the road.
That is true. They've won three consecutive games on the road, and they are on a two-game win streak right now. Like you said, they just beat Purdue on the road, and the game before that, they defeated Illinois, like you said before, 80-76. And they've really been improving lately, despite their best player and Kelly Jaycott, their leading scorer and player who really has the most minutes on the team, went down with an injury in practice a couple weeks ago. I didn't think that they were going to be as good as they are. I thought that they were going to get better as they figured out who was going to take her place and make up for her production. But credit to this team and credit to the coaching staff because they got it figured out and figured it out quick.
I mean, hey, you have to when you're in a conference that's really good and is developing quickly. So, what are some of the things that you see the Penn State women's basketball team doing to make them this good this quickly, especially with freshmen and sophomores?
Yeah, I think one thing worth mentioning, like you said, this is a young team. Their average age is 19 and a half years old. That is just ridiculous. They're the youngest team in the Big Ten and definitely one of the top 10 youngest teams in the entire country. So that's one thing. Another thing is that their returners have really stepped up in the last couple of games. Their sophomore trio, the returners from last year of Anna Camden, Shay Hagans, and McKenna Marisa. Credit to them, they've been picking it up a lot more on both ends of the floor, not only scoring but also assisting, getting after it on the defensive end. So credit to them. Anna Camden just had her second consecutive double-digit game. She just had, yes, absolutely. Shay had 5 steals in one game the other day. Like, it was just ridiculous. Like, I don't even know where it came from. And then McKenna, oh, she has turned on the Jets the last couple of games. She had 2 20 points, 2 20-point games, and I think she's really stepped up as a leader in light of Kelly going down, and credit to her.
Nice, nice. So who are some other players to be weary of, or other teams for Penn State players to be weary of?
Um, for Penn State, I think that they're coming back home to the Bryce Jordan Center, which they haven't won a lot of games at home. They beat Minnesota on the road, and then a couple days or a week later, Minnesota came to the Bryce Jordan Center, and Penn State couldn't get the job done. They lost. So I think really stepping up and defending home court these next 2 games against Nebraska and Wisconsin is going to be huge. They're not teams that I think that are going to be overpowering to Penn State. I think Penn State can run with them. And then even their game against Indiana, Indiana has Mackenzie Holmes, and she's phenomenal inside. And I think Janaisha Cash, who's been pretty much Penn State's bread and butter on the inside, I think that Cash kept up with her for a while, but at the end, in the end, she ended up really taking over and taking control down the stretch. So I think if Penn State keeps her at bay, as well as I believe that their 3-point shooters are also pretty good when they're on and making shots. So if Penn State can lock down on the outside while also keeping Holmes at bay on the inside, they should have no trouble there. And then, yeah, pretty much. And then they have to finish out 2 of their last 3 games are against ranked teams in Ohio State and Maryland. And they had a lot of trouble So they had a lot of trouble keeping up with them when they played the first time. So I think that it's good that they're playing them at the end of the Big Ten season. So maybe by then they'll have enough games under their belt without Kelly Jaycott to really put together a solid effort against those teams.
Great, great. So who are some other players that Penn State fans should be looking out for, on the Penn State team? Because a lot of these girls are doing a great job and they're developing quickly.
I'll agree with that. And a lot of them are new. Like I said before, only 3 players came back from last season's team. And I think 2 big players that have experience and that have really stepped up in light of Kelly going down have been McKenna Marisa and Janaisha Cash, 2 players that I mentioned before. I think McKenna is really developing into more of an offensive threat in terms of taking the ball to the basket and finishing through pressure while also becoming more of a rhythmic shooter from beyond the arc. She's just elevated her game so much in such a short amount of time. And I think that's something that the team is really going to need in terms of, keeping her out on the floor. Keeping her out on the floor is going to be another big key as well, because she's a very good defender, but with that also comes foul trouble. And that's something that plagued Janaisha Cash early in the season. She's a phenomenal player on the inside. She's great at, boxing out, grabbing rebounds, getting second chance opportunities for herself. And, in the beginning of the season, she racked up fouls early in the game and she sat for maybe a quarter or two. And that's really when Penn State struggled to defend inside the paint. And then, Penn State would collapse in the paint to try and help, but then other teams would just kick it out and knock it down from beyond the arc. So I think that Cash has really elevated her game as well. These last couple, she's on a streak. She's had 3 triple doubles in a row, which is the first time that that's happened since 2007 for these Lady Lions. So that's something to look at. And, you could tell that she's very experienced. She's a senior, but she transferred in from Southern Methodist University. So she wasn't here last season. But I think what she's been able to do from a leadership standpoint and production on the court is something that they're going to need if they want to compete with big teams.
Okay. So, what else would you like to say about these Penn State Lady Lions?
Coach Carolyn Keeger always talks about bringing the juice on both ends of the floor. That's sort of her thing. She loves high-paced play, both ends of the floor, tenacious defense, making other teams have to guard every single person on the floor. So, something that I found odd is that Penn State has really been backing off of their press the last couple of games. Early in the season, Penn State was forcing turnovers on the press. They were hurrying up offenses. Offenses were trying to do too much against their press, and that would turn into turnovers, and then it would turn into points. So against whoever, they just played Purdue and Illinois. Illinois, I remember at the beginning of the game, Penn State was pressing, but it was more of a passive press. Like they were just letting the team bring the ball up the floor. And I'm thinking that can't be something that Carolyn is proud of right now. Like she's always talking about giving 110%, whether it's hustling for a loose ball, going up for a rebound, going for a 50-50 ball that's in the air. She always preaches that. And I just did not see that out of this team. Granted, they won the game, good for them, but but it was close. And I think that had they played 100% on defense from start to finish, it would have been more comfortable for them.
Nice. Well, Alexis, anything else?
I just think that these younger players on Penn State's team are really gonna develop into something special. Maddie Burke, she's great from 3-point range. I'd love to see her expand her game to, taking the ball to the basket more and becoming more than just like a spot shooter from the 3-point line. And then also Tova Sable, I think that she has amazing potential. She could stroke the shot from deep, but she could also take you right to the basket and finish. So I think those are 2 players that Penn State fans are really going to have to keep their eye on with these Lady Lions.
Well, nice. Okay, everyone, stay tuned. We are going to have Jake from the Collegian come up onto the show and talk to us about Penn State wrestling. See you then. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we have our Collegian beat writer, Jake, here with us, who's going to talk about the wrestling program at Penn State. So, Jake, how's it going? What have you been up to?
Good. Thank you guys for having me. I haven't been up to much. We're recording this on a Monday right now, and I'm in New Jersey, and we're getting probably at least like 1.5 feet of snow. So, been like monitoring that situation and trying to find some motivation to do some work in between shoveling. So yeah, just hanging in there.
Jake,
good. Yeah, motivation to do work is right now. So go ahead, Lexus, if you want to start with the first question.
Okay. Jake, I know that the wrestling program had to, sort of go, I don't know if you would call it a pause or whatever. Like they had a couple of their meets rescheduled and everything like that because of COVID. What was the program doing during that time? How were they utilizing that time?
Yeah. So, they were originally, slated to open their season against Rutgers, early in January, and then that match got postponed because of COVID concerns. And then actually, the team was supposed to wrestle Michigan State. I think it was last weekend, and uh, or maybe the weekend before, and the team actually had to pause activities for 2 weeks because someone like close to the team or on the team tested positive. And so, our understanding and talking to Cale Sanderson is that, it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of what they were doing. On one hand, the guys on the team that weren't quarantining and that weren't in isolation, they could go out and practice and they could go out and lift and do a lot of those things. But for the people on the team that were in quarantine, it was a bit harder for them to do all those things because they're really not supposed to do much. So, they practiced, they lifted, they had some wrestle offs at some of the weights that were maybe kind of contested. But I mean, that sort of seemed like the extent of it. I mean, Kale brought up the point of like, listen, his team and he and the guys on his team can do everything 100% right, but that still doesn't guarantee that there won't be a positive test. And that was, something that he sort of stressed. He was like, yes, there's a personal responsibility element and that he wants his guys to be taking it seriously, but he knows that, even if that's the case, and even if everything is going 100% according to plan, some guys might test positive. So, I mean, in terms of what they were doing, it's a lot of what other teams have been doing, practicing, working out, trying to stay socially distant, all those types of things.
Jake, who is going to be, what weight classes and interim wrestlers do you think are going to be key to, having Penn State be as successful as they have been in years past? And, even, dare I say, creating a new legacy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, it's easy to say all of them. So obviously last year there was no NCAA tournament. So Penn State is technically still the defending NCAA champion team. Um, but the thing is so, they haven't had an All-American at 125 pounds, which is the lightest weight class since 2016 when Nico Megaludis won a national title. So, everyone says, oh, they need a 125 pounder. Yes, obviously it would be great and it would be nice if they could get one. And it seems like they have their guy in that in Robbie Howard potentially, but they've won NCAA titles since 2016 without having a 125 pounder. I think what is going to need to happen is, they're going to need production out of, guys in kind of the middle weights. I mean, I think they're pretty set in the upper weights. Aaron Brooks, I think just by virtue of being a Big Ten champion, is kind of viewed as a legit title contender. Um, you know, Depending on who they go with at heavyweight, I mean, Seth Neville's, if he didn't injury default out, probably would have qualified for the NCAA tournament at heavyweight, and he looked really good his first two matches on Sunday or Saturday. And so, I think it'll be interesting to see those middleweights, 149 pounds. There's a roster battle. Jared Verkleeren lost an early match at 149 pounds on against Northwestern, I believe it was, and then against Indiana, later in the day or earlier in the day, uh, Penn State opted to go with Terrell Barraclaw. So, they changed things up and they went with two different guys at those weight classes. Same thing with 197 pounds. One of the matches, it was this kid, Loveko Higgins. Another one, it was a wrestler named Donovan Ball. So, the weight classes that are definitely more up for grabs, 149 pounds, 125 pounds, they're going to need to solidify starters there soon because they're running out of time before. I mean, the Big Ten tournament's in just over a month. So, they're going to need to solidify all those things sort of in the coming weeks.
Okay, okay. Who or what team do you think is going to be the best matchup for Penn State? Or what match are you looking forward to seeing Penn State wrestlers go up against?
Well, so I think the answer to that question is almost always Iowa. Last year, Penn State lost twice to Arizona State. One was to Arizona State. and by a point. Their other loss was to Iowa by 2 points. And up to that point, Penn State had won 60-something matches in a row. So, Iowa's got, you know, Spencer Lee, who's, the reigning Hodge Trophy winner, which is kind of like the equivalent of the Heisman for wrestling, at 125 pounds. A lot of guys who are returning All-Americans, a lot of guys who are returning Big Ten champions. So Iowa almost consistently always gives Penn State, a run for its money, both in the regular season and in the postseason. So I would say that match. And then, Ohio State's on a bit of a down year this year, but I do think that Ohio State also always wrestles pretty competitively, against Penn State.
Jared, I see you have a last question here. If you want to finish it up with this one.
Yes, my last question for you. When I go to a wrestling meet, my favorite word to hear is when the coaches are yelling, sprawl, sprawl, sprawl. What is your favorite word to hear when you go to a wrestling meet?
Ooh, that's tough. So a lot of the Penn State fans, they'll like call out like stall, stall, like that they think one of the opposing wrestlers is kind of stalling and trying to like buy time and not really do anything.
I can remember that.
That's probably the one I pick up on the most. Do I have a favorite thing? I don't know. I mean, the Rec Hall fans are great and they're definitely like in a league of their own. But a lot of times, honestly, like they don't even say a lot. It's just they're kind of like cheering and whistling and yelling. And so that kind of sticks with me more than any kind of one thing. And, up in Rec Hall, where we're on press row, we're pretty far away from the mat. So it's hard to hear stuff down on the floor. But just, in the stands, seeing all the passion and the energy is definitely something that stands out maybe more than any one thing.
I can agree with you on the stall thing. I've watched a couple on TV and I've been to a couple matches last year, and stall I think would have to be the most overused word by Penn State wrestling fans. I have to say, and it's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah. But listen, the Penn State fans are certainly, very knowledgeable and very passionate. So, a lot of times, who knows if it works, who knows if it has an effect on the refs and if the refs are even listening, but, they still say it nonetheless. So.
All right. Well, Jared, do you have any other questions before we finish this one up? All right.
Nope, that is it. Thank you.
Jake, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, out of your snow day, to talk with us about Penn State wrestling.
Yeah, of course. It's my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, that's it for us today. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Sports Speak. I am